What if DJI is about to put flagship-level camera technology into a drone small enough to fit in your jacket pocket? That's the possibility surrounding the rumored DJI Mini 6 Pro. And if even some of the more ambitious leaks turn out to be accurate, this could be more than another yearly upgrade. It could completely change what creators expect from a sub-250-gram drone. We're talking about rumored improvements to the camera sensor, aperture control, obstacle sensing, tracking, transmission, low light performance, and overall flight experience. But there's a catch. We're still dealing with rumors, and not every leaked specification makes it to the final product. So let's separate the believable upgrades from the wishful thinking and, more importantly, figure out whether you should actually wait for the Mini 6 Pro or simply buy a current generation drone. The first thing to understand is why the Mini series is so important. DJI has built this product line around one major engineering challenge: keeping the drone below 250 grams while still delivering the kind of image quality and flight features people normally associate with much larger machines. The weight limit matters because regulations in many markets treat drones under certain thresholds differently, although the exact rules depend on the country and how the drone is being used. That's why every gram matters. DJI can't simply make the drone larger and add whatever hardware it wants. Every new sensor, processor, battery improvement, and camera component has to fit within an extremely tight design envelope. The Mini Pro lineup has already demonstrated how far that concept can go. Previous generations pushed increasingly capable cameras, better obstacle sensing, improved subject tracking, and stronger transmission into an incredibly compact body. That's why the Mini 6 Pro rumors are getting so much attention. The question isn't whether DJI can make another small drone. We already know it can. The real question is whether DJI can bring technologies normally reserved for larger and more expensive drones into this tiny form factor without compromising weight, battery life, thermal performance, or reliability. And that brings us to the camera, which could be the biggest story of the entire Mini 6 Pro. One of the most interesting rumors is a stacked 1-inch type sensor. Now, it's important to stress that this should be treated as an unconfirmed specification until DJI officially announces the drone. But if the rumor is accurate, it could represent a significant change in how the Mini performs when capturing fast-moving footage. A stacked sensor essentially places additional circuitry alongside or beneath the imaging layer, allowing image data to be read much faster. One of the major benefits of faster sensor readout is reduced rolling shutter. That's the distortion you sometimes see when a drone makes a fast movement and straight objects suddenly appear slightly bent or tilted. It's especially noticeable during aggressive pans, fast tracking shots, or when you're flying past objects close to the camera. For casual flying, rolling shutter may not be a huge concern. But for creators shooting professional footage, it can make the difference between footage that looks polished and footage that requires additional work in post-production. If DJI manages to combine a large sensor with much faster readout in a sub-250-gram drone, the Mini 6 Pro could become particularly interesting for filmmakers, real estate creators, travel channels, and anyone who wants high-quality aerial footage without carrying a larger drone. But the sensor isn't the only camera rumor worth watching. Another potentially important upgrade is variable aperture. This might not sound as exciting as a bigger sensor or higher resolution, but in everyday shooting, it could actually be one of the most useful changes. Most compact drones give you limited control over how much light reaches the sensor. When you're shooting in bright conditions, you may rely on ND filters to control exposure while maintaining a particular shutter speed. The problem is that changing an ND filter means landing the drone, physically swapping the filter, and taking off again. That's manageable when you're doing controlled shoots, but it's frustrating when the lighting changes quickly. A variable aperture could give the pilot another way to control exposure directly from the aircraft. Imagine starting a flight during bright afternoon sunlight and continuing into golden hour. Instead of constantly changing filters, you could potentially adjust the aperture as lighting conditions change. For creators who shoot long cinematic sequences, that could make the workflow much more flexible. However, there's an important reality check here. Variable aperture doesn't automatically mean better image quality in every situation. Aperture affects depth of field, diffraction, exposure, and other optical characteristics. The quality of DJI's implementation would matter just as much as the feature itself. So, this is a rumor worth watching, but not something we should treat as confirmed until DJI reveals the actual camera system. Resolution is another area where the leaks have become ambitious. Some reports suggest the Mini 6 Pro could potentially offer 6K recording, possibly at multiple frame rates. If true, the benefit isn't simply being able to put 6K in a title or on a specification sheet. Higher resolution capture can give editors more flexibility when producing 4K or lower resolution content. For example, you can crop into the frame, reposition a subject, or apply digital stabilization while retaining more detail in the final export. That's particularly useful when you're capturing a fast-moving subject and don't have perfect framing during the flight. In other words, more resolution can give you more options after the footage has already been recorded. But again, resolution isn't everything. A poorly processed 6K image isn't automatically better than a beautifully processed 4K image. Dynamic range, noise performance, color science, lens quality, compression, bitrate, and sensor readout all matter. That's why the combination of the rumored sensor and processing improvements is much more interesting than the resolution number alone. Another rumored upgrade that could have a major impact on safety is improved obstacle detection. DJI has already made obstacle sensing a major part of its modern drone lineup, but bringing more advanced sensing technology into the Mini series would be a significant step. Some rumors have pointed toward more sophisticated distance sensing hardware, potentially including laser-based technology. If that becomes part of the final product, it could improve the drone's ability to understand its surroundings in situations where conventional vision systems may struggle. Lighting conditions can create challenges for camera-based sensing. Strong glare, low light, complex backgrounds, and other environmental factors can make visual detection more difficult. A dedicated distance sensing system could potentially provide additional information to the drone's navigation system. But there's something important to remember. Obstacle avoidance is an assistance system, not an invisible force field. Even the most advanced sensors can have blind spots. Thin branches, wires, rapidly moving objects, unusual surfaces, and unpredictable environments can still create risks. Pilots should never treat obstacle avoidance as permission to fly carelessly. Then there's tracking. DJI's subject tracking has become one of the most useful features for solo creators because it allows the drone to follow a person, vehicle, or other subject without requiring constant manual control. Future improvements could focus on better subject recognition, smoother movement, and improved performance when the subject changes direction or temporarily becomes partially obstructed. This could be especially valuable for cyclists, runners, hikers, motorcyclists, and other creators who need to capture themselves while moving through complicated environments. The real test, however, won't be whether the drone can track a person standing in an open field. The test will be whether it can maintain the subject when trees, buildings, other people, or sudden movements enter the frame. Another upgrade that deserves more attention is the rumored next-generation transmission system. A drone can have an incredible camera, but none of that matters if the connection between the aircraft and controller becomes unstable. Transmission technology affects the live preview, responsiveness, range, and reliability of the connection. A newer system could potentially improve performance in areas with significant wireless interference or when flying around buildings and other obstacles. For professional pilots, this kind of improvement can be more valuable than another increase in resolution. A stable connection gives you confidence that your commands are reaching the aircraft and that you're maintaining a reliable view of what the drone is seeing. Noise is another area where DJI could make a surprisingly useful improvement. Smaller drones are already relatively quiet compared with larger aircraft, but reducing motor and propeller noise further could make the Mini 6 Pro more practical for wildlife, travel, and public filming. A quieter drone doesn't just make the pilot happier, it can potentially reduce disturbance to animals and make the aircraft less intrusive in environments where people are nearby. Of course, local rules and privacy considerations still apply, but from a pure usability perspective, Reducing acoustic noise would be a meaningful quality of life upgrade. Battery life is where expectations need to stay realistic. Every generation of drone can become more efficient, but battery technology doesn't suddenly transform overnight. So if the Mini 6 Pro offers longer flight times, a modest improvement is far more believable than some enormous jump in endurance. A few additional minutes might sound insignificant, but over multiple batteries during a full shooting day, those minutes can add up. At the same time, new hardware could consume more power. A larger sensor, faster processor, additional sensing hardware, and more powerful transmission system all require energy. So DJI has to balance performance against efficiency. The final battery life will tell us whether the company managed to improve the hardware without sacrificing endurance. Low-light performance could also become one of the Mini 6 Pro's biggest strengths if the rumored camera improvements come together. Small drones have historically struggled more in low light because compact sensors simply don't capture as much light as larger systems. As the sun goes down, noise becomes more visible, dynamic range becomes harder to manage, and shadows can lose detail. A larger sensor combined with improved processing could help address some of those limitations. That could make the Mini more useful for blue-hour city shots, sunsets, evening landscapes, and other situations where the available light is constantly changing. But this is also where we need to be careful with expectations. A small drone becoming better in low light doesn't mean it will suddenly outperform every larger camera system at night. Physics still matters. The improvement would be relative to the Mini category, not a guarantee that it will replace every larger professional drone. So when could the DJI Mini 6 Pro actually arrive? That's where things become much less certain. DJI doesn't always follow a perfectly predictable release schedule, and rumors can change dramatically before a product reaches the market. A late 2026 or later timeframe may be plausible depending on DJI's development cycle, but until the company officially announces the drone, any specific launch date should be treated as speculation. Regional availability is another factor potential buyers shouldn't ignore. Drone regulations can change, and DJI's ability to sell or support particular products can vary depending on the market. So even if the Mini 6 Pro launches globally, the exact purchasing and regulatory situation could differ significantly from one country to another. Now comes the question most people actually care about. Should you buy a drone now or wait for the Mini 6 Pro? If you need a drone immediately for a job, trip, project, or important shoot, waiting indefinitely for an unannounced product doesn't make much sense. Current DJI drones are already extremely capable, and buying a proven product today means you know exactly what you're getting. But if you're not in a hurry, and you're specifically interested in the Mini series because of its combination of portability and image quality, waiting could make sense. The rumored combination of a larger or stacked sensor, improved aperture control, better sensing, smarter tracking, and upgraded transmission would represent a meaningful upgrade if DJI actually delivers it. And here's the feature combination I would watch most closely. It's not simply 6K, it's not just obstacle avoidance, and it's not even the sensor by itself. It's the combination of sensor performance and exposure control in a sub-250 gram aircraft. If DJI manages to deliver a genuinely capable large sensor, together with practical aperture control, while maintaining the Mini's weight and portability, the Mini 6 Pro could start challenging the traditional reason creators carry a much larger drone. That's the real story here. The Mini series has always been about removing the compromise between portability and capability. Every generation gets closer to the point where you can carry a drone that's incredibly small without feeling like you're sacrificing professional image quality. But for now, remember one thing. The Mini 6 Pro is still a rumor. Until DJI officially announces the specifications, treat leaked features as possibilities rather than promises. Some may be accurate, some may change, and some may never appear in the final product. If you need a drone today, don't let rumors convince you that your current equipment is suddenly obsolete. But if you're considering an upgrade and don't have an immediate deadline, keeping an eye on the Mini 6 Pro could be worthwhile. Because if even the biggest camera rumors turn out to be true, DJI may once again prove that the most interesting drone doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest one.